Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. Kind of like a season 2. We are so glad that you guys have joined us after our entire first year of this podcast. Cody, how fun has this been?
It's been a blast. It's been a blast.
Yes.
And actually, it actually like flew by. Like it doesn't even feel like a year, but it's been very enjoyable for me. I've learned quite a bit just by being a part of this conversation. And I've also connected with a lot of really, really awesome people too, which is very exciting and very rewarding as well.
I agree 100%. And I just want to remind all of you as we move into this second year of this podcast, we are going to continue to encourage you to join us in our Facebook group, the New Money Habits Financial Coaches Facebook group. And also we want to make sure that you are continuing to provide those 5-star ratings and reviews for us so that we can continue to bring content that is relevant and helpful, exciting, all of the things that you would need. All of the things. So thank you so much for bringing all that to us, you guys. We are excited to talk to you today about a really important topic. And I think it's one that sometimes goes undiscussed. And it might be because we're afraid to talk about it, or we realize that it brings a little bit of accountability to us. But that is the topic of energy, and the energy that we bring to the table when we are talking to our clients or our potential clients, or even when we're talking to people about what it is that we do for people. So Cody, I'm really glad. Actually, you're the one who brought this idea up, and I loved it so much. I said, let's go ahead and let's talk about this. We're going to talk about it in a few different ways, but I'd love for you to bring up to me, or for our audience, what is it that made you want to talk about this in the first place?
Yeah. So I have just kind of realized a few things about myself, and about just like the way that my practice has grown over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And, I have my ups and downs. I think that we all kind of do, whether it be with our energy, with, our motivation, with our business in general. I think that there's certain times where we're like, yeah, like this is sweet. Everything's clicking. Everything's amazing. And then there's other times where we're like, oh man, this kind of sucks, right? And I've just kind of realized, looking back at those times where I was in like a lower place, my energy was also lower as well. Mm-hmm. I wasn't super excited. I wasn't really motivated, and because of that, I actually was showing up to my calls with my clients with probably not the best energy that I should have been. I made it work, but it just wasn't what I would have wanted to be at. Yeah. And also I was showing up to, my consultations with just like this, like, okay, cool. Like, I hope I get this, or, like, here we go. I got to do this consultation, versus like a pure excitement and like, energy and all these different types of things. And I've noticed that when that happens, I stay in that rut. I stay in that lower place. But if I'm able to really work on and focus on my energy, and I make that shift, then things start to pick up steam. Mm-hmm. I get more clients. My clients that I'm serving, those meetings are much more impactful. And I just feel better. I'm more excited about it. I, worry less. I feel less pressure. And I think that, we get so wrapped up in the day-to-day stuff, like, oh, I got to do all this stuff, or I have to talk to this person or whatever, that we oftentimes forget that the way that we show up is arguably equally as important as showing up in general.
Yeah, so I hear you very much describing a chicken or the egg vicious cycle type of scenario going on here. When you are feeling really, really good about whether it's life or your business or all of the things put together, you show up differently. And when you show up differently, you tend to have more good come into your world. Mm-hmm. And the opposite of that is also true. When you're feeling like, oh, business is kind of down or life is kind of overwhelming, you show up with a lower energy. They're feeling that. They might not want to sign on with you, or they might not want to send you referrals if we're talking to people about what we do. And so business continues to stay at a low for you. And so what I hear you saying, Cody, is that if we want to fix that, maybe a really good place to start is to look specifically at our energy, because it might be an easier fix than, how do I fix my whole business right now? Right? Like if business is low and you're like, well, I need to get this many clients, or I need to try to make this amount of money, or I need to do all of these things, that's a lot more overwhelming than, how do I fix what's going on in my mind? How do I show up differently? So I'd love this. Let's just talk a little bit about what are some of those things that we can do to proactively ensure that we have high levels of energy.
Yeah. So, I really view this as almost like a law of attraction kind of thing. Like what you put out, you receive in either way. If you were to put out like good energy, excitement, motivation, all that kind of stuff, inspiration, then you're going to get that back. And if you don't, then you're not going to get it. Right. So when I found myself in those like funks or those lower places, I do a few things to kind of psych myself up and, rewire my brain essentially. Okay. So, a handful of things that I do is I really just take a second to just think about like what in my life, whether it be business related or just life related, but what in my life am I really, really grateful for? Mm-hmm. Right.
Gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good place to start. Like, for me, it's my family. Like I wake up and, I wake up to a crying baby, right? Mm-hmm. But then as soon as I pick him up and he sees me, he just gets this big smile on his face. And I'm like, yes, that smile is what it's all about, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm very, very grateful for my family. I also think about what excites me. I'm excited to be able to do coaching full time and to be my own boss and, to grow a business, more than I ever have before, and to provide for my family, and still have a pretty good balance. I'm a hard worker, yes, but I still have family time, and, I'm very blessed to be able to do that. So that excites me. Gratitude, excitement, and also really thinking about what's really important to me as well. Mm-hmm. So it kind of goes hand in hand with the gratitude and the excitement, but it's also really important to me that with my work, that I show up for my clients and for the people that I want to help in the way that they would want to, in the way that I would want someone to show up for me. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep.
And that just, when I ask myself, like, am I being that person? Am I being the person that I would want to hire? And the answer is no. Then I'm like, okay, how are we gonna get there? Right.
Yeah. First of all, I love that question. So I hope that our listeners who aren't driving at the moment write that question down. Am I being the type of person that I would want to hire? That is a really, really great focal point, I think, so that it just puts things into perspective for us. I'm also going to say the quiet part out loud. And if anyone who's listening has listened to any of us in this past year, you know that Cody does the whole 75 hard thing. So if anyone else besides myself was just scared to death that he was going to jump into, well, just do all of these things and you'll have great energy, I'm really, really grateful. And I'm sure we'll go we'll go there somehow, some way. But I'm really grateful that you started with something that actually has more to do with your mind and your heart and what is going on in there. Because it's something that anybody who's listening to can do. There is no physical barrier to that. And so the last thing I'm going to say before we move on to some of the physical stuff we can do is that the gratitude idea, I love that. I just want to tell you that one of the things that we've instituted in our home, and so if our listeners want to do this, you can as well, is we have an actual gratitude list that's on our wall. So it's like one of those giant, it's actually behind me if you can see it right there, but it's a giant, Post-it, like the ones that just stick on the wall. that's not the gratitude list behind me, but that's what we use. We take one page of that and literally just stick it up on the wall, and it says Casillas gratitude list. And it started out when my children were whiny little brats. And I got so tired of it. And I said, you know what? You whine to me one more time and you're going to have to go put something on that list that you're grateful for. And I do not accept repeats. And that's how it started. And so I put it up there, and, you know, they'd come to me and they'd whine. I said, go put something on the gratitude list. And so they'd walk over there, you know, upset with me, and they'd write, you know, family, and then they'd write God, and then they'd write some of their sisters' names or whatever. And then eventually they realized that they can't keep doing those things. And so it forced them to start thinking about something new, something different. And I'll tell you what, Cody, we have it in a very prominent place where every day we walk by that dumb thing and we see it. We are going to be reminded, like, these are the things that we are grateful for. And it really starts to lift your energy, because it's that reminder of, yeah, you might have those slumped shoulders and things might be rough, and maybe you just yelled at the kids. Well, maybe you don't do that yet, but I have. And then I walk past that and I'm like, oh yeah, look how cute they are that they wrote these things on there, you know? And so I encourage anybody who's listening to think about that. Feel free to, you know, steal that idea, whether it's putting it up in your home for your entire family, or maybe just like in your office, if you want to just say, here's what I am personally grateful for, before you know, jump onto a consultation or something like that. So thank you for letting me share that idea with you. I'd love to hear some of the other, like, physical stuff that we can do. Yeah. But remember, we're not all as awesome as you, Cody. So be nice.
Oh, you're making me blush. No, it's nothing too crazy, to be honest with you. It's not like any sort of like 75 hard thing, like, you know, go work out twice or anything like that. That will definitely help for sure, but that's not.
And it has helped you.
Yeah, it has helped me a ton. So there's a few things I do. One is I get up out of my seat.
Yep.
I just stand up.
Yep.
You know, and, you know, even if you were to stand up and you were to have those, the reflection thoughts of like, okay, like, what am I grateful for? What am I excited about? What is important to me? If you were to stand up and do that and just, like, you know, stretch out your arms and, you know, wiggle your body a little bit, take some deep breaths, you can automatically feel yourself getting a little bit more centered, even by just standing up, right? So that's one thing, just stand up. Another thing too is that I like to have like a physical sign of me basically saying, hey, like, this is me becoming centered and becoming more aligned with my energy, right? So for me, I do like a little praying hands thing, and I put it up to like my nose and my mouth. And I'm just like, all right, cool. I do this, right? You could put like a fist to your heart. You could put, you know, your fingers on your head. You could, you know, do whatever you want, right? But just like a physical representation of like, every time that I do this thing, that means that I am intentionally working on centering my energy again. So that's another thing. And me personally, I also am a huge music lover. You know, for people who've listened since the beginning of the show, that's where I come from. I come from the music industry. And I also was in a band as well. So music is a really big part of my life. And I really connect with it a lot. So oftentimes before I hop into like a consultation to where I'm going to be pitching coaching, or, you know, before I start a master class, or, you know, I have a big session coming up that's like going to be really important that I want to make sure I'm like in a good place with my energy, I'll throw in my AirPods. And this sounds cheesy, but I will literally throw on the Rocky theme song. You know, like do like, and I just throw it on. I put it on repeat, and I literally just like jump up and down. Like, I punch the air a couple times. You know, I do like the whole like Rocky thing where he like gets up on the top of the staircase and he throws his arms up, you know, like all that kind of stuff. And I don't care. Like, I'm in my office alone. No one can see me, but it helps me because I'm getting pumped up. Right. I'm like feeling that energy that music brings to me. And then I literally do it like for like the last like 5 to 10 minutes before these calls. And then as soon as like that clock says you have like 30 seconds left, I'm like, all right, cool. Taking my AirPods out. I'm continuing to stand. And then I start the call. And I just feel really, really energized. And when I show up to these calls with the energy and with the excitement and with the intention, people feel that. Yep. You know, like people oftentimes will buy into your coaching, not necessarily because of the information that you're providing them, but really about like the energy that you're bringing to the table. You know, if you were to like go into this consultation, for example, and you were to be like, yeah, so, you know, this is what I'm seeing, and, you know, this is what I think you could do, and here's my program, and, you know, I asked this much, what do you think? You know, like, they'd be like, maybe. But if you show up and you're like, yo, so this is what's going on. This is what you're going to do. Here's what you can, here's what you're capable of. Here's the program. And this is what I ask people to invest in. And honestly, this is going to be sweet. Like, people are going to just feel that, and it's going to transfer over to them. Your energy will then transfer over to them, which will then make them more inclined to actually join your program. So, you know, those are some physical things that I do. You know, I stand up. I have my little sign to myself, you know, like with the praying hands, and I listen to music, and I literally jump up and down and punch the air.
I love that. I think another thing that for those listeners who are taking themselves too seriously, and you know who you are, before you do anything with anybody, just stand in front of a mirror and laugh at yourself. Like, find a way to just literally start laughing. I know that sounds so cheesy, just like you said with some of the other stuff, but it will lift your mood. Like, it's hard to be melancholy and laugh at the same time. So if you can get yourself to, even if it's just faking it for a little while, you will eventually realize that, okay, I got this. Like, I'm laughing, I'm lighthearted, and I can show up. I would like to double down on what you said about people would more likely join you based on your energy versus just the information that you give them. And the reason that I want to double down on that is because in this day and age, there is so much information that is available online for free. You know, we can get it from our great uncles, our friends, whatever. People have opinions, people have information, and that's not in low supply. Right. What is in low supply is somebody that we feel we can trust, someone we feel we can relate to, somebody that we feel can bring us along with them. And I think if you show up with that, not just, you know, it's not a fake energy, it's more like a confidence, I think, that you have the ability to walk alongside with this individual, excuse me, then that is what they are really buying with you. And they know that the information you're going to give them, as long as it's not bad information, they're willing to sign up with you for that energy.
Yeah. What it comes down to is that we as coaches, we do not sell information. We could, but the good coaches, they don't sell information. We sell transformation. That's the end goal. Right?
I agree.
We can give them as much information as possible, but it doesn't matter if there's no transformation. And the transformation starts with us. If we can't have that transformation in ourselves, then how are we going to do that for other people?
Yes.
You know, so we really need to take that 5 to 10 minutes before these calls, or even just working on stuff like building our program, or, you know, making posts on social media, whatever it might be. We need to take those 5 to 10 minutes to transform into that energy focused self, to where we're like, okay, I'm centered, I'm here, I'm being intentional, let's get it. We need to do that if we want to be able to do that for our clients as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm really glad you added that last part about even when we're just showing up and working on our content or working on the programming that we're going to do. The stuff that we put on paper is going to reflect how we're feeling at the moment as well. Also, it's going to be a lot more time efficient if we are in a really great place, because otherwise we'll just sit and look at a blank piece of paper and like, oh, what do I want to do? How does this work? I don't even know where to go with this. Whereas if you've taken those steps to, you know, boost that energy, like you mentioned, Now you're like, oh, I might not know where this goes, but I'm going to put it down. Right? Like I'll deal with what it's going to do later. It really does bring a different energy. I'd also like to make sure that we one more time reference that a lot of times people are going to libraries, they're going to other networking events. They're always saying, how do I build my network? How do I get people to know what it is that I do? And I just want to take a moment to point you in the direction of make sure you have this energy stuff down before you go to some of those networking events, because we practice so many times. Like I can't tell you how many people are like, oh, I need to get the perfect origin story, or I need to make sure I have my elevator pitch down, or I need to know what, when people say, what do you do? Like I need to have this down. And we've even talked about that on the show before, how to craft one and all of that. But I can tell you guys, if you don't have a certain energy about you when you share that information, people are like, oh yeah, that's nice. But if you can relay, same thing what we just talked about, people are going to buy you because of your information. I mean, not your information, but because of your energy. Same thing with the networking. People will refer somebody to you because you seem like someone really fun and great to work with, someone who's confident, somebody who is going to be able to get the results for their friends and family versus somebody who just knows it all.
Yeah. Yeah. Big time. Big time. And I think that it's also important to recognize this too. So in particular with the consultations, above, like, maybe you might feel this way with your clients, like with just a regular coaching session as well. But, with a consultation or like a networking thing, like you had mentioned, like at the library or, a BNI or, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
There's a lot of conflicting emotions that I think people get confused about. So a lot of people might say that they get nervous when they're going into these calls or when they're going to these meetings. And, I think that nervousness and excitement are very, very similar. Our body responds pretty much the same way. The only like difference with like the chemicals in our brain and the way that our body reacts to those two different emotions is just the meaning that we put attached to it. So when we're nervous, like our heart rate starts to get a little bit higher. Our palms get sweaty. We feel a tightness in our chest, like all those different types of things. But that also happens when we get excited too.
Yep. So
the only difference is the meaning that we put attached to it. So if you find yourself getting nervous before these calls or before these meetings or these networking things, you can just decide and say like, I'm not going to make that a nervous feeling. I'm actually going to make this an excited feeling. And here's why I'm excited. Like, I'm excited because this is someone that I'm going to really, really be able to help. This is someone that I am very excited about working with because of their energy and, who they are as people. And I just know that when we do this, not if we do this, but when we do this, this is going to be amazing for both them and me, right? If you were to just choose that route and just say, no, I'm not nervous, I'm actually excited, then that really does bring the energy full circle as well. And then you step into it with excitement and not nervousness. And people can tell the difference.
That is just an amazing mental shift right there. And if you guys get nothing else out of today's episode, I think that one is super, super huge because it is so naturally happens the same way, like you mentioned. And so it's not going to force anything physically. It's actually just a mental trick. So I really, really like that. Before we close up today, Cody, I would like to also mention one other thing. Everything we've talked about today so far has been about things that we personally can do, like right before we hop on to a call or go to a networking event, etc. I want to talk just for a few seconds about the idea of who we are meeting with in the first damn place. And that is because, and I know we've talked about this before, but I think it really fits in with today's topic. If we are, and I'll just tell you for myself, there have been times when, because of life, because of my schedules, because of whatever, I'll have and I open my practice because of my crazy schedule. I actually have practice. I have appointments at night sometimes. So it could be, 6, 7 o'clock at night when I have an appointment. And I share that because by the time 6 or 7 o'clock rolls around, I've had the entire day behind me. And there are times when all I want to do is just be like, okay, I just need to relax. I don't want to have to show up, but this person's paying me. I want to help them. And so I force myself to get there, right? There have been times when I get off of that call and I have so much more energy than I did before I started the call. And I started to really look at patterns. And the reason for that extra energy is because I flipping love what I do. So that's one thing. The other thing is I love what I do with the certain person that I'm doing that with. So we've talked on this show before about making sure that you bring in somebody that you enjoy working with, that we've talked about ideal clients and what that looks like. And a lot of times people will say, well, they make this amount of money or they're in this stage or whatever. But don't forget about the personality that they bring, the energy that they bring to the coaching sessions for you, because I think that is going to be one of those other things that you don't have control over, but it will play into how you show up and how you stay showed up, if that's even a word, with these individuals. So what do you think about that, Cody? How do you feel about when I talk about that?
I think that that's extremely important because you're right. Like I'm right there with you to where there's certain times to where maybe I have had a long day. Mm-hmm. I'm up early, I'm doing my stuff, I've had calls, and maybe I have like a later call in the evening, like after dinner kind of thing. Yeah. Which I personally do. You guys don't have to do that, but I do it because I know that there's certain people with their schedules that they just have to do it that late. So I make it work. And, there's definitely times where like, okay, I've had my dinner, I've spent some time with my family. I just want to relax. I just want to watch this movie with my family. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to do it. Right. Mm-hmm. But then you're right. Like after you hop on that call, then you get re-energized and you're like, okay, I'm glad I actually did that. I'm glad I kind of worked myself up to that. But I'll tell you, if I felt that way going into it, and then I did the call, and then after the call, I was like, oh, glad that's over. Mm-hmm. That's a really, really good way to not want to coach.
Right. Yes. And they felt it too. Like I can guarantee you, if that's how you're feeling by the time you're done, they also felt that way. And they're not super excited to, go, whether they continue on with you or not. They're not even excited to do whatever homework or exercises you set up for them to do. So, and they're not likely to stick to whatever plan you guys came up with together. So that's just something else to think about. So we have talked about the energy that we bring to the table. We've talked about why it's so important. We've talked about ways that you can mentally and verbally kind of bring that energy up. We've talked about physical things that you can do, like act silly. Anyone who's listening, by the way, I think if you set up a call with Cody, you should totally ask him if he just did his little routine with which song was it? Rocky. Right?
The Rocky
theme. You should ask him, hey, dude, did you just get off the Rocky theme? Then we'll know you listen to the show. Anyway, we talked about some physical things you could do. And then we talked about like how you can make sure you bring in the right person so that they are reciprocating that level of energy for us. Anything that we missed today, Cody?
No, I think that we pretty much covered it. This is a topic that we don't talk about too often.
Yeah.
Usually we try and talk about like certain things that, we're coming up against or things that are going to help grow your business or, talking about certain things that happen with clients. But this is something that is a constant behind all of that. And we just don't talk about it very much. And what I mean by we, I don't mean like this podcast. I mean, just people in general. Mm-hmm. We just don't talk about it that much, but it's always there.
Yep. And it's such a simple fix. I mean, it really is one of those, small barrier to change, I think. And so I think it's really important that we bring this up. And you know what? And it's September. And because it's September, people are going to start moving into the fall, the seasons where, you know, a lot of coaches are going to end up picking up business because people are like ready for Christmas and then they're moving into the new year, and you start to see all of those different resolutions and all of that stuff. So if you're listening to this when we release it, which is in September, start now with fixing your energy. Start now with just trying to implement some of these things. Start looking at yourself in the mirror. Start jumping around to Rocky. Whatever it is that you need to do, look silly. Blame it on us if you need to. But get yourself mentally and physically prepared for what's about to happen, because your business could explode over the next few months. And we want you to be in a place where you are ready to accept that and change some lives that really need that from you. So, all right.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for listening today and for kicking off this new season with us. Speaking of new seasons, you know, we're going into the fall. We are also in a new season of our show. So thank you so much for hanging out with us for the last year. We really, really appreciate you guys, and we hope that you continue to hang out with us for this year and all the years to come. Who knows? And I have no idea how long we'll do this show, but hopefully we'll just keep going. So thank you guys for that, and we'll catch you next week.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching. Music provided by Summer School.